All right. Hello and welcome back to our workshop. Today we are talking about mapping your buyer persona and user journey for a website project or a website build. So we'll get into all of that in a little bit here. In the meantime, I'll just let people kind of filter in for a little bit. Feel free to post in the comment section. Just say hi and maybe, where you're joining from or what company you're with, just to give us a feel for who is all here. Say, feel free to say hello. Hi, Don. Thanks for joining. All right. Well, we can go ahead and get started and just kind of go over what's on the agenda for today. All right. So first and foremost, for those of you who don't know Andrea and Ismar, Andrea and Ismar will kind of be leading the charge. I'll talk a little bit at the beginning of this presentation. But Andrea is our Director of Marketing Services, and Ismar is our lead website designer. So on the agenda today, we're going to start with what is a buyer persona, just kind of recapping what's included in a persona, how you create one, things to consider there, why that is important as a part of your website design process. We'll also talk, of course, about what a journey map is, and Ismar will really dive into kind of how she creates a journey map, what kinds of things she considers, why a buyer persona is important to understand when you're building your persona or your journey map. And then we'll also talk about kind of melding those personas with your journey map, kind of what they're thinking at various stages throughout the buying funnel, how their behaviors might influence decisions that you make about the website when it comes to things like calls to actions, pages, etc. And then at the end, we'll talk about blending marketing skills. So design for one, and then also audience research and other areas of digital marketing to really kind of complete the full user journey. All right. Hi, Donnie. Hi, April. Thank you for joining. As we kind of go through the presentation, feel free to ask questions along the way. I'll try to kind of field those as they come in, but there will also be an opportunity at the end of the workshop to ask questions. We'll do 5 to 10 minutes Q&A towards the end. So yeah, feel free to either ask your questions during or save them for the end. Either way, we will get to them. All right. So to start things off, I just want to talk a little bit about what a buyer persona is. I'm sure many of you joining are in the marketing world, so you probably do have some familiarity with a buyer persona. So I want to kind of cover 4 key areas. There's more that can be included in a persona, but I would say these are kind of the big key things to look at, especially when you're considering how that might influence some of your marketing decisions. So first and foremost, you have the role of the person. And so for this example, I'm just looking at a product engineer. So your role is really kind of what are the day-to-day tasks that that person performs? What is it that they do day in and day out? Kind of what are their core functions at the workplace? So in our example here of a product engineer, we have designing and developing new products, collaborating with other engineers and manufacturing teams, and ensuring quality requirements are met. And then you have goals, and that's kind of more beyond just the day in and day out. What is really the purpose of that role? What is kind of the outcome of that role? What are they trying to achieve overall? So in this example, it might be innovation. So new products that differentiate the company overall, improving efficiency, improving product quality, so ensure products meet industry standards, etc. Third, we have behaviors. So for kind of the purposes of marketing, I think of this how that person makes decisions or how they might think or kind of reach a conclusion. So in this example, one would be they're research oriented. So they're staying up to date on industry trends, technologies, competitor offerings. They're detail oriented. paying close attention to things like specs and designs. And they might be analytical in this case too, using data to inform product decisions. And then lastly, we have challenges. So this is pretty straightforward, but the way I think of it is kind of what keeps them up at night. What are they most concerned about? Um, what are their biggest pain points, if you will? So in this example, tight deadlines might be a big pain point or challenge, budget constraints, and keeping up with just rapidly evolving technical advancements. So why is this important and why do we look at all of this? Understanding that buyer persona, and you probably have multiple buyer personas, can really help to understand what you need to highlight or touch on in your website, what you need to consider about that person when they're making a decision. So, leaning into that a little bit more, why is this important for your website? So, for one, it can influence what pages you include. So, for example, do they need specific resources available on their website? Do they need specs sheets available? If they're really research or education focused, do you need to have a blog or some other kind of resource hub? Obviously, you're going to have probably all of your core offerings on your website, but what else kind of supplementary information might you need to include on your website to um, help that person make a decision or find what it is that they're looking for? Call to actions is a big one too. So, how does that person prefer to get in touch with you? Is it through just a generic contact us form? Is it a request a quote? Do they want to start kind of building their quote through the website? And we're seeing more and more too, just buying directly online. Do they want to just complete a transaction right then and there without talking to anyone? Those are all the things that you might need to consider on the call to action side of things. And then SEO. So, what is it that they're searching for or Googling or looking up when they're in that research phase? Those are keywords or things you might want to incorporate in the actual content or messaging of your website. And going back to the pages, it can also influence what pages are on your website. If you're seeing specific keywords or specific questions that your audience researches or looks up regularly, you might want to consider including that as a page on your website. And then navigation too. So what needs to be, at the forefront. And this is where you could also kind of consider if you need to break out your user journey map into different audiences. Say you have architects and engineers, you might need specific callouts right away on the homepage or in that top navigation. So that person knows exactly where they can go for the information that they need. And then lastly, messaging. So going back again to the persona, their challenges, their pain points, what messaging on your website is going to really resonate with them that is going to make them think like, oh, this could solve that problem that I have. This might help me sleep at night. So think again about the buyer persona and of course the messaging on your website. All right. I'm just going to briefly touch a little bit on how to build your buyer persona. So, the first thing that I recommend starting with here is just talking to people, just good old fashioned desk research, as I call it. So, talk to different departments, assuming you're on the sales and marketing team or just marketing team. Definitely talk to your sales reps. Talk to customer service. What questions are they getting asked regularly, or what pain points do they hear regularly? You could talk to product development to learn kind of what's new or what's cutting edge or what they're working on next. Engineering might be a good group to talk to. Research and development, they might have some market research that will be helpful in your understanding your buyer persona too. So definitely just start with talking to different departments that you might not regularly interact with. And then this next one is a little bit harder to pin down customers, but if you can, interviewing them directly. So even if you're planning on doing something like a customer, sort of like a customer survey or something like related to customer service and how are we doing, you could loop in questions and something like that related to understanding their buyer persona a little bit too. Follow publications and associations that your audience might follow to kind of stay up to date on what they're concerned with or what they're talking about, going to events and trade shows, and not just being there for your own best interest and your own trying to push your services, but to just be organic and talk to people, get to know them, ask them questions about the industry. What are they seeing? What are their challenges, etc. Again, getting back to that buyer persona. And then last here is polling your social media audience. This is kind of a more creative way, but LinkedIn on your personal page or on your company page, wherever you have the larger audience, in a post, you can put out a poll. So if you have a specific question or you want to get a pulse on something in your industry and see how people are feeling about specific things, you could use that also to just get kind of like a pulse check on the industry and your buyer persona. And then the last thing here, as far as understanding your persona, is to run digital diagnostics. So this isn't something that's going to necessarily give you like a complete picture of your buyer persona, but it can give you some insight into what you're already doing that seems to be resonating with your audience. So, for example, looking at your Google Analytics, what pages is your audience visiting the most? Where are they spending the most time? What's bringing them to your website in the first place? Is it SEO? Is it ads, etc.? Those are all things that you want to consider ahead of a website project, so that you can incorporate those things moving into the website project. If you're running ads, for example, what messaging seems to be resonating the most? What ads are getting the highest click-through rate, for example? What's bringing them to the website? Social media, is there specific content that seems to be really resonating with your audience? Are they commenting or posting on things that you're putting out there? Again, those might kind of influence the content that lives on your website. And then lastly, you can use heat maps. So this will give you a little bit of insight to this. You use a third-party tool for, but it can show you how users are actually navigating on your website. Where are they kind of intuitively clicking, or where are they intuitively looking, to, again, give you a sense of what is or isn't working well with the website. So you can really consider what you're going to keep and what are you going to leave behind in that next website project. Don has a question. I'll ask this to the group, Ismar and Andrea. Would multiple personas tend to confuse the website layout? I think that, Ismar, you'll probably kind of touch on this a little bit as we get into the user journey map. So let's save this, and hopefully, hopefully as we go through what your section, that will address Don's question. But if not, we can definitely come back to it at the end.
Cool. Yes, it'll be answered on the second slide.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, with that, I think that's a perfect segue over to you, Ismar. So I'll hand things off for you to talk through the user journey maps.
Awesome. So first off, what is a journey map? Can't start it if you don't know what it is. So essentially, it's a visual storyline of every single engagement a user has step by step when they interact with anything regarding your company, whether that's your service, brand, or product. It's also the best path. It shows the best path that you want a user to take. And it helps by deconstructing every single step that it takes to complete the process. Usually it's very important because sometimes we have, when you're in a company and you are very familiar with your product and your brand, there could be blind spots that you may not be aware of. So actually writing it down step by step really helps solidify that path for that specific user. And you can go on the next slide, please. Which leads to why they're important. I already touched on it a little bit, but essentially also it creates an effective way to get customer satisfaction and grow your business. This is done because we're going step by step, it's easier to remove obstacles by identifying those pain points, opportunities, what users expect. Really put yourself in the perspective of the user that's interacting with, that's going through that process. Like, what are their goals? What are their motivations, feelings, thoughts? When you put all that together, it really solidifies a better customer satisfaction. And then also how Donald was talking about having multiple personas, that means multiple user journey maps for a situation could be confusing, specifically for like a website. I would say it could be the opposite, that it solidifies what that is, because it helps eliminate duplicate pathways, anything that is not, that's a little bit more redundant. So when you really start looking at personas, the more different they are, and they all have like different situations, the more that you can also prioritize certain elements on your website too. So if you see multiple personas are really looking at your blog, for example, then you know for sure that you have to highlight your blog somewhere much more predominant. Maybe it's only just on your footer as a menu, but it's not on your homepage. So then that kind of helps you realize a lot of people are really looking for a blog to see what's the newest stuff. So then that helps you know that putting that on the homepage will help those people that are looking for that. So that's one way of doing that. And also a journey map. So I hope that answers your question. I will definitely go into more on like the process once we start looking into that in other slides, but hopefully that answers your question on that one, Donald. And also, just because we're talking about in this workshop websites, user journey maps for a website, journey mapping can be used for virtually any kind of process. It just has to be a process. You have to have certain elements to it, but a journey map you can use it for internal projects. You could use it to gain new customers, get new employees, pretty much any kind of thing. You can even do it for product design too. And if you go to the next slide, I kind of go into what consists of a journey map. So as long as there is some kind of user, or other people call them, like you would also see them called actors, personas, users. I personally like using the word user because it's more general. Because if you just say customer journey map, you're only solidifying that's only for customers, but anybody that like a job seeker would also be using your website as well. So that's why making it a little bit more general, calling it a user. Typical website users for industrial manufacturing companies are either prospective customers or existing customers, and also job seekers. And so that's pretty much where that buyer persona really comes in. So you would use that they would be the user for this user journey map. Then you also have to have a scenario and an expectation. And scenarios could vary depending on what kind of user that you're selecting. So for example, we're going to be focusing on the request, somebody that would be requesting a quote is a very popular one for typical website scenarios, especially for industrial manufacturing companies. You could also have existing customers. Maybe they're buying bulk products online. They already know who you are. They're just there to purchase what they've been purchasing for years. You could also have someone that is contacting customer support. Maybe it's a product engineer, somebody on the technical side of a project that would be reaching out on the website to get more specific things on a current product that they have. Or for the job seekers, another one is applying for a job, whether it is applying directly on the website or looking for open positions and then navigating the user to an external website for that. So then once you have your scenario and your expectations for that user, then you're really going to start mapping out the stages, the phases, and what each goal, because each phase has a goal to it. Each person naturally just kind of, they're on your website for a reason, and so it's solidifying what those goals are to accomplish those phases. And you can have as little or as many phases as needed for that process. The idea of a journey map is it's very flexible, and that's a really great thing. So, and then also what we want to then look at is, going back to the user, is finding out what kinds of actions, their mindset and emotions for each of the phase that they're going through. So like from the beginning, in the example of the website, like how do they feel? What do they do when they land on your website? And then it'll carry on through, for example, the one that we'll be going through is the request a quote. So what happens when they land on the website, and how are you going to get them to fill out a form or call you? And then getting all that information, it helps find out the opportunities that you can help those people get to those expectations and have that customer satisfaction that we're all looking for. So now you're thinking, where do I start, right? Yes. So next slide. First one, you're going to choose a user. So who's experiencing the journey? For example, we're going to be looking at individuals who are decision makers. So if anybody that's requesting a quote, I can put an example like buying like large equipment. So we need somebody that's a decision maker that's going to likely go on your website. That could be plant managers, engineer managers, any kind of director of product design development, or could also be president owners that may not have the bandwidth to have somebody else look into that, especially if they're like a small business. So they're the ones that are looking for this kind of information. And then after you choose a user, you're going to choose a scenario. So what they're trying to accomplish, and going back into the request a quote scenario, we're going to flesh that out a little bit. And I put an example of that. So maybe they're looking to replace outdated equipment to save on production costs and avoid operation downtime. And what do they expect their website experience to be? And this is stuff like they don't really think about. It's just things that they just expect to experience when they're on your website. So they expect to find answers on their own. So they don't want to immediately just start calling you all and requesting quotes. They want to answer questions on their own, however that may be by visiting product pages, looking at other pages on your website. And they also want many ways to contact you however they see fit. So if that's through sometimes a live chat, easy way to call, so buttons to call, online form call to action, so then they could fill out forms. A lot of people don't like to have phone calls. Like me, I don't like calling. I like just taking the time to write the perfect message that I want to send. So that's the one I would choose, online forms. And of course, no one's going to assume that their website they're going to be visiting is broken and it's not working. So an expectation that everybody should always strive for is to have a modern, functional, responsive website. So then, going back to the example of requesting a quote, here are some typical phases for that example. You have 4 phases. You start in your education phase, research, then evaluation, and then your justification. So I put an example of each goal for that phase. So it's just very high level overview. So for example, the goal of your first phase, your education, is to get a high level overview of the company, who you are, what you sell. And then maybe they could look a little bit on your products to see like, all right, this is possible. We're going to bookmark it. Then they're going to go to the research phase where they may come back to this product and may come back to your website. They could also be going back to other competitor websites. They always assume you're not the only website they're looking at. They're looking at everybody. So they're judging you based on what other people are doing too. So keep that in mind. So the idea for the research is to gain a deeper understanding of the products, services that they're interested in, that pique their interest. And then after they really look into all that they can on the website that you offer them as information for them to look at, to help them solidify that your product, gain a little bit more confidence in the products and services that you offer. Then the evaluation phase comes in, where then they start deciding if you stack up to your other competitors too, or how you differentiate from other companies. So that they could be looking at like case studies, looking at more your certification pages. So like if you have an ISO, very detailed, I can't remember the certificate, an ISO certification. And then once they really solidify, like, all right, possible, this one's a contender, then they go to your justification phase, where that's when they reach out to you, however you give, whatever outlets you give them to reach out to you. So if it's like through a live chat or request a quote, or simply an email, I mean, not an email, a phone number link, something that they could initiate that conversation. Okay, I see a question. Whoop. Probably answer that one near the end, Jackie. Thank you. And then if you go to the next phase, the next step is breaking down those phases. So keep in mind those goals, which I'll put them in the goals in the next slide. But here, this is where each phase you have to break down much more. Keep in mind those goals, what they're thinking and saying, what they're doing at that phase. So what pages they're visiting, what are they clicking, how are their feelings, what are their emotions throughout that phase, and then how can we improve that map, that phase throughout the journey, so we can make so we can reduce the obstacles that a user would have. So then we would do that for each of these phases. And then I have an example here that we could work on together. I filled out the second phase, which is the research phase, but I put the goals in here. I thought this would be like a really nice one that we could do together. The first phase, which is the education phase, which is gain high-level overview of the company and what they sell. So if we look at the second phase, I could give you a little bit more, so that way you understand what I'm asking here to do on that first phase. So for example, once they already know who you are, they're really gaining a deeper level understanding of like your products and services. Stuff that they would be thinking is like, is it easy to install? Keep in mind if this is like a large equipment that they want to buy. Like, is it easy to install? What are the specs? Is it durable? What is it eco-friendly? Like those kinds of questions that help also solidify what you put on that website page. And then like things that they're doing, they could be visiting product pages. They could also be comparing your product capabilities with another company's product capabilities. Could be watching product videos. They're feeling focused. They're impressed by your equipment. They're also curious to see other options that they probably didn't even think about. If you offered new solutions they didn't even think about. So they're curious about that. And ways that you could be that you can improve that research phase could be maybe adding an image gallery or adding related products, a related product carousel in a product page. So that way you keep people clicking and curious to see what other products you sell. So that's an example of how we would break down. This is also like very high level. You could go way more in detail because to make it fit your company, like what are the questions that a user is asking for your specific product or your specific service? What are things that you have noticed that's a trend that people ask or do or complain about? They're like, this isn't on your website, wasn't on your website. And then, take note of that. So if we want to work on the first one, which is the phase one. So if put yourself in your prospective client's shoes in your company and ask yourself, when they land on your website, what are things that they might be looking for when they land on your website? So you can all write any kind of thing. So if you think of, what may they be doing? How are they feeling? What are they saying when they see the website? Is it a nice website? Oh, this is a very nice website. Or, oh, they do these products. Oh, that's nice. Like, how are they feeling when they arrive on your website? Are they feeling that maybe they're stressed because their equipment broke down and they're like, I need to find something quick. I don't really want to be doing this. Let's figure it out. Maybe they're stressed in the beginning. So your goal is to make them not stressed. That's where the opportunities come from. So if there's anything that you all want to put in here, we can type them in here.
Yeah, you can use the chat. I just put a prompt in there. What might people think or say or be doing at the education stage of their journey? And like Ismar said, you can be specific to your prospective customer, or you can just generally speaking, what might someone in the education phase be doing? We have some backup answers too if it's quiet. But
Yes.
it's a little pop quiz. Didn't see that coming, did you? We'll give it a little bit. Why don't you start filling it in, Ismar? And then if anyone
Sure.
else has additional thoughts or ideas, feel free to put them in the chat.
Let's see. Does it pop up? I typed it in.
I don't see anything under education.
Yes.
Or
okay, well, I'll just say it, and
okay.
because I'm typing it in, I think it might be lagging. Okay, so for thinking and saying on education level, they could be thinking, what do they sell? Who are they? Where are they located? Things that they could be doing. They could be visiting the homepage. They could be visiting your about page. It could be skimming product equipment. So they may not know exactly what they're looking for, but they're clicking just to see an overview of your product lines. They could also be visiting industries like industry served pages, market served, to see if you know their industry. Feelings, emotions that they may have. They could be stressed. They could be also curious, and definitely open-minded if they're looking for a big kind of purchase like this. They're ready to just start searching around, shopping around to see what kinds of equipments are out there. And so essentially also, like, if it's new equipment, if it's outdated, they're looking for innovative things. So they're going to be searching for that kind of stuff. Opportunities, if you emphasize your experience on your homepage, like or any kind of certifications you'd want to put on your footer, so you can already establish that sense of trust when they see how many years you've been in business. You have really strong technical support, like that kind of content. Include digestible content like stats, benefits, and bullet points, icons, and anything to also like share product pages. So like if you're on a product page, you could put social shares or like an email, or a way to bookmark that product so then they can look at it later. So you're really setting them up to want to come back to get into that second phase where they really look at your products when they establish that sense of trust. So that's what I would do in the education phase. And then essentially we would do the same thing for the other phases as well. So I would just kind of put a preview in here on how the request a quote form would be an example, this filled out. And because it may also seem like it's linear, that a user would be doing a linear thing, with like start in education, then ideal, right? Someone go to education, go step by step. But sometimes people just go straight to the justification, or straight to the quote. They already know who you are. They don't want to do all this stuff. Just give me the form. So there's a lot of people that work in different ways. The idea of this is that every phase is easy to pick up wherever they start. So if it's on the phase one or phase in the middle or in the end, that there is no friction with their user flow. And then here, what we have for you all is a screenshot of our user journey map worksheet that we have put together for you all. And we'll give you an online, that link to you in a follow-up email. Yes, right. So essentially, it's what we went through the slides here. This is a Google Sheet that is editable, that you can add as many phases, remove as many phases, and customize it however you want. Right now, this is specific to the website, so you can see at the top, there's a little bit of like a persona, user persona that you could put in there. The goal, that scenario, why are they on the website? But you can customize it to however you need to. And then also we have a space for your goals. We also have a phase duration if that's important to you. If there's like a purchase timeline, that ideal purchase timeline, you could also put that kind of information in there. And we also have at the bottom like a user experience where it gives you an overall rating of an accumulation of the overall experience of what they're thinking, what they're doing, their pain points, all that stuff in a visual format that you could visually track if it's a positive experience, a neutral experience, or a negative experience for you all.
I just posted in the chat. Yeah, I just put in the chat a link to copy that worksheet. So when you open it, it'll say, do you want to copy it? That way you will have your own personal version of this worksheet. And you can kind of look through the different sections that Ismar has outlined. So, all right, moving right along.
Ismar, did you have anything to say about how much time you allocate to complete the persona?
Yeah. A persona, I would say about if you know your okay, that's a good question. I would say about 2 to 3 hours you could really solidify something for yourself, like an outline. I mean, you could really these personas could be pretty in depth. I've seen personas where they could be like 2 pages long for one person. But
I think it really depends, probably.
Yeah, exactly. So
I would say
if you want it, or it's complicated.
Yeah. I would also say like the amount of resources you have. So when Anne, you went through like where you're getting your information for these personas, like if you have a lot of resources already collected, like that's going to put you so much further ahead.
Express 2 to 3 hours if you have all the information ready to go. But I could easily see this also as a one-day workshop for your team to really solidify it together. So yeah. And then let's see, and journey mapping part for the website process, I would also say that's a day or two worth of workshopping and putting that together.
Yeah.
I would say putting it in kind of like our top floor perspective, usually the first, I would say 2 to 3 weeks of a website project are strictly dedicated to understanding buyer personas, building the user journey profiles, building the user journey map, and getting kind of both Ismar's take on that as a designer, but then also our marketers in terms of our SEO strategists, our PPC strategists, which now Andrea will talk a little bit more about, but also getting their kind of take on those personas. Yes, I did. I did segue that nicely. All right, take it away.
All right. So once you've established your personas, your buyer journeys, the next thing is really to, if let's say you're doing this for not just your website project, but also your marketing strategy, using that to inform your marketing strategy. So you can use it to anticipate questions and pain points at every stage, and you should be. So when you're looking at every stage, look at those pain points, what they're looking for, the information that they're looking for, and make sure that your messaging then aligns to that, which brings me to the second point, which is tailoring your messaging and content. So don't serve them absolutely everything you think they need at every phase, because again, you're giving them way too much to think about it right at once, and you're overwhelming them, which is my third point. You want to optimize those touch points and then reduce the friction. So don't give them too much. Don't overwhelm them. They're not going to know what to look at. Give them what they need in the moment of what they're searching, what they're looking for, who they are, what they're on your website for, what you've brought them in with as far as like keywords or targeting. And then, so I have a quick example here. So taking action. So if, let's say somebody is at the stage of research. So at this stage, for example's sake, the buyer has defined their problem and they're evaluating possible solutions. So their goal is to compare various solutions and products at this stage. The resources that you should be thinking about could be, and this is example, so it may be different for different personas again, but case studies, product comparisons, specifications or technical documentation, any kind of ebooks that you can offer them to alleviate some of their questions. Buying guides are really excellent at this stage as well, if you have that kind of resource. And then again, those are the things that you don't necessarily have to have ready when you're doing this, but you should say, it might be worth us doing more case studies for this type of persona, or it might be worth us trying to produce a buying guide for this product, or even this industry. And then the channels that you want to think about. So of course, your website, like that's where you should be starting, like have the resources available on your website, easily accessible. Again, your content. So whether that's blogs you're addressing these questions in, or again, you need additional case studies, videos. Maybe you don't have your specifications available for download on your website. Think about collecting those and putting them on there. And then how you're targeting them. So look at your organic traffic. So your SEO efforts, the keywords that you're bringing them in on, should be indicative of what phase they are and what type of research they're doing in that phase. Same goes for paid search. In fact, you should be talking to each other. If you have two different people doing your SEO and your paid, make sure that you are on the same wavelength as far as where they are in the buyer journey, and then who that persona is. And then, of course, you can use social too. So just another channel. We've seen a lot more people utilizing social for these for this research phase as well. And then I have remarketing with a bunch of stars asterisk next to it, because if you then take these personas, and this is like pie in the sky, right? If you've taken these personas and you cater a campaign around your persona and you're pushing them through this buyer journey, you can, of course, use remarketing at this stage. So they've done their education, which should be your awareness stage. You've probably brought them into a specific page with specific messaging to take the next step, which is research. And you should be basically collecting that audience from that page and doing a remarketing to them that would get them to that next phase of their journey. But the messaging has to align. You have to be able to push them through that buyer journey in the right order. So just keep that in mind. And then, of course, test and refine. We're always testing. You should always be testing. But part of that is you need to identify the right channel metrics for the intent of your marketing effort. So like I said, if you're at the awareness stage and you're doing marketing effort around that, your messaging should be awareness. Your page that you bring them into should also support the awareness stage. But then you're not looking at conversions off of the awareness stage. Those are nice to haves. What you're looking at is impression, reach, maybe clicks at that point. But not necessarily lower funnel metrics. So keep that in mind and keep it basically segmented so that you know if something's being successful in the stage that you're using it for. Use your website analytics and reporting. So that could be GA4, that could be heat maps, to basically see if is the page that you're bringing them into really what they're looking for. If they're coming to the page, clicking nothing on that page and navigating to a different page, I think you've missed the mark. Like whatever your messaging was isn't relating back to what they're seeing on the actual page. You're not giving them what they're looking for at that stage. So try again. Definitely close the loop with the sales team. If you've gotten them through to the quoting stage, did they have enough information when they asked for that quote? Was there things that they said that they didn't get on the website that you can add back there? Ask your sales team. Definitely have that conversation. And if they want the sales, they will be happy to give you the information. Always be testing. Like I said, we are always testing things because you just don't know until you start to target and give out that messaging for that targeted audience. So test your messaging, test your targeting, test the different channels. Maybe there's a channel that doesn't really work that well for that type of persona in that stage of their journey. You don't know till you try. And then, of course, revisit your personas to ensure they reflect changing customer needs. They should not stay stagnant for years. Like, you don't go through this process and be like, oh, we're done. We have that for the next 10 years. No. There's always new resources. There's always new types of ways to target people. There's new types of ways for them to do their research, what they might be looking for, innovations in the industry that you need to be speaking to, that they're looking at. Just always revisit that persona so that you can keep that fresh.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. It is now our Q&A time. I think this goes for 45 minutes, so we're going a little over, but feel free to stick around to ask some questions if you have them. You can just post those right in the chat. In the meantime, I will just let everyone know about a couple of upcoming events that we have. We have our manufacturing roundtable in 2 weeks on Wednesday, October 9th, which will send out more information in our follow-up email. And we also will be attending the Assembly Show in Rosemont, Illinois, October 22nd through the 24th. So if you're planning on exhibiting there, definitely stop by our booth and say hello. And it looks like we have a question from Don. So Don and Ariel is a team member at Top Floor. They started this process a couple of months ago. Don was confused by the fact that only one customer persona was used. Is the goal to create multiple journey maps or one map with multiple paths to take?
I think you should have your a few different personas for different industries, different companies, but then also have the journey map for that a single persona. So one persona per journey map. Again, to Isamar's point, they're not going to necessarily all start at the beginning and go through every single stage. They may bounce around. It's certainly fine to do it, to start the whole process with one, so you can kind of refine that, and you're not. It's like when you start doing actual science experiments, they tell you don't have too many variables, right? So just start with one, start with your most important one, hopefully, and then test out how you go through that process of targeting them. What kind of messaging is working? What kind of content are they engaging with? And then try to basically refine your process for doing that before you expand it to other personas and other journeys.
Mm-hmm. Especially if you're just looking at your existing website and how to make improvements there, starting with just one. I think if you're starting from scratch with a brand new website, might as well take a look at maybe a couple more personas beyond just the immediate priority. But when you're just focusing on how can I make what I've got work better, starting with one is usually easier. Also, hi, Lloyd. I am going to have to copy and paste that message into Google Translate.
I know a little bit of Italian, so I can translate it.
Lloyd is aware that I was in Italy not that long ago.
Another great webinar.
Yeah,
that part I think I get.
Yeah, great job for you and your team. I hope to see you soon, and something about your trip.
Yes. Very good. Thank you, Ismar. Hi, Lloyd. I'll see you soon. All right. I don't see any other questions at the moment, but if you have them, you know where to find us or reach us. So thank you all for coming. Thank you, Andrea and Ismar, for sharing your expertise as always. And I hope everyone has a great rest of their Thursday. Thanks, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.